Welcome to the Wolves Squad Show. I'm Sam Ekstrom. We'll try to quantify just how much the Wolves miss Dante DiVincenzo.
Parker Fox here, KFAN and the Big Ten Network. Game 6 at home. What difference can this Target Center crowd make for this Wolves team?
I'm Jack Borman, co-host of the Locked On Wolves podcast with my man Luke Inman. And the Timberwolves, can they answer the question, will they prove us wrong? One more time, we'll find out.
This is Locked On's Wolves Squad Show, the twice-a-week show where Timberwolves talk gets real. No filters, no fluff. Just raw takes, sharp opinions, and straight-up passion for the game. The way only Locked On Podcast Network knows how. Let's drop some dimes and squad up. The Wolves Squad Show starts now.
Locked and loaded on a Thursday edition of the Wolves Squad Show. Hopefully not the final in-season edition of the Squad Show. Game 6 looming. Will a lineup change occur? Will Julius Randle cement a negative legacy his time here in Minnesota? How is Anthony Edwards positively or negatively impacting the team right now? And if the Wolves can force a Game 7, do they have a shot in San Antonio? Can they pull a shocker like they did 2 years ago in Denver? All coming up on today's Squad Show with Parker, Jack, and myself. Missing Julia again today. She is at Wolves Access. Maybe she'll call in with a little cameo. I should send her the link. She was in San Antonio the other night where the vibes were low. Then they kind of got high for about 2 seconds. The game was tied at 61. The Spurs from that point on, and this is middle of the third quarter, the Spurs more than doubled their score from that point on. They outscored the Timberwolves, top of head math, 65-36 from that point forward. In a word, Jack, what happened in the final quarter and a half of that basketball game?
In a word, what happened? Backsliding. Backsliding is what I'd go with. I think for the Wolves, they worked so hard to get back into the game just with defensive effort and intensity. And then Jaden McDaniels picks up a really bad fourth foul. Was it fourth foul? In that third quarter around the 6:47 mark, and everything was just downhill from there, right? And so I think for the Wolves, it's just feels like for them to have any chance of beating this Spurs team at home in Minneapolis, the foundation that you build everything off of is defense, right? And in order to have your defense set up the way that you want, you got to have Jaden McDaniels stay out of foul trouble. You got to have Naz Reid stay out of foul trouble. You got to have Rudy Gobert stay out of foul trouble. And both the games that the Wolves have gotten absolutely smacked in San Antonio are the two games that Jaden McDaniels has been in foul trouble so far in this series. So I think for the Wolves, that's going to be the most important thing. And then I think I really like the way that they got Anthony Edwards in the corner to start possessions and lifted him out of the corner with wide pin downs, zoom actions, pin downs into a dribble handoff. They even got more creative than that and had some zoom action into Spain, which is screening for Gobert to get him freed up on the roll, and just involving Wemby in the action more and being able to screen him more. I thought we saw Chris Finch and his offensive staff do a really good job of getting to that more when they were in their comeback. And unfortunately for the Wolves, just weren't able to execute the way that they needed to on the offensive end of the floor to keep pace with a Spurs offense that really got it rolling once Jaden left the floor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the starts, Parker, have just been terrible. Again, 24-9 in this one. It was 18-3 in Game 3. The Game 4 start was a little bit better, but still not great. I mean, they haven't had a good start, arguably, in this series.
No, they haven't. And it's frustrating, Sam, because I feel like since I, joined talking with you guys about Wolves, like it's been something I've talked about. I've wanted more from the start, and I get it, right? Like I understand the NBA, it's a long game, and during 82 regular season games, players that are superstars talk about feeling the game out a little bit, getting up and down the court, getting comfortable. Victor Wembanyama doesn't do that. Victor Wembanyama asserts his dominance right away, and I think that's something that this team needs to learn from. And is if they want to continue to find ways to win games and move on throughout this series, they have to strike while the iron's hot, and that's right away from the jump ball. We talked about it all, as a team all the time in our locker room. Is how can we start that first media timeout, where in college basketball it's 4 minutes and under? How can we start that media timeout hot? How can we find a way, even if we're not leading, even if the points, forget about the scoreboard, right? Forget about what the score is at that first media timeout. Did we play the right way? Did we execute what we wanted to do defensively? In their ball screen coverages, were we in the right spots? Offensively, were we able to assert our dominance? Were we able to set pin downs? Were we able to start our offense where we wanted to start? Or are we on our heels and we're getting pressed and we're getting double teamed, and it's kind of all that oh crap moment, like this team came here to play? Like, you can't have that eyes wide type of like, oh crap, this is a ball game. Like, you have to bring that dominance to them, and I think that's something that you have to give the Spurs credit for. Mitch Johnson has done that, and we've seen the double team. I know we'll talk more about it as this episode goes on, but it's the situation where it's do or die right now. And if you don't come out tomorrow night in Game 6 with the mentality that's in the right place of we're going to find a way. If there's a will, there's a way, and this starting lineup is what we trust. I know we'll talk a lot about if we think Finch is going to change it up. I personally don't think he will, but nonetheless, like, no matter what it is, even if it's Naz Reid when he comes off the bench 6 minutes into the game, what energy are you bringing, especially for Naz on the defensive side of the ball, into this game that's going to impact winning? So I think we're going to learn a lot about this Timberwolves team and the direction of this Timberwolves team the first couple of minutes of Game 6 from Target Center.
Jack, are you at all surprised at just how much better San Antonio looks than Denver? I mean, I think you were probably on this before a lot of us, but we viewed Denver as a formidable team that could make noise in these playoffs, go deep, maybe upset San Antonio. But the difference in defensive intensity, the difference in depth and number of players that can beat you on that Spurs team, it's so much different. There are so many more threats on the floor than we saw against Denver. And if you drop your guard for even a moment against these Spurs, they're running down the floor in transition, right? They're kicking out to Carter Bryant. De'Aaron Fox having a bad game. Harper's going to pick up the slack. They've got so many more options than we saw in the previous round. Like, it is really a struggle to stay locked in when you're undermanned and you've got guys banged up for 4 straight quarters.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they're much better coached than Denver is too, right? I think you see they're all young. They don't have, really any playoff experience, but I think you see how quickly they make the rotations. You see how consistent they are in their defensive schemes. You see how just quick they make decisions with the ball in their hands offensively, right? All that stuff is really important. And it's funny that, one of the guys with the most amount of playing experience really in the rotation is De'Aaron Fox, and he's often at the core of a lot of their offensive problems, right? And these young guys, I think when guys come in and they're young and you can sculpt them the way that you want to, and you have the wealth of knowledge that they have in the Spurs organization, and you think about all the longevity and the fact that guys like David Robinson and Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili are all around this team pretty much every single day in the facility, at the arena. Greg Popovich, even after his health issues, is still around. I think all that stuff matters, and I think it speaks to why this team just looks, I think, a lot more consistent than the Wolves do, which is an important note. And their offensive ceiling is just significantly higher than this Timberwolves team because of it. And that's something that's really important. But I think you also got to give, Dylan Harper and Keldon Johnson credit too, because those are really the only 2 options that San Antonio has off the bench, at least offensively. Carter Bryant's an excellent defensive player, but he's not really going to give you a whole lot more than maybe making 1 or 2 threes, at least this year. I think 2-3 years down the line could certainly be a lot more than that. But those 2 guys have really delivered. Dylan Harper's delivered in pretty much every single game, and Keldon Johnson has really delivered for them in their wins. And so I think, like you said, Sam, it's pretty impressive that, when one guy's having a bad game, he doesn't really try to fight it. He just tries to get the next guy going. And I think that's a really cool kind of culture and spirit that the team has and the team plays with. And for the Wolves, at some point, it just kind of feels like trying to, uh, take a square peg and put it into a round hole, right? And it's a little bit unfortunate, but at the same time, I think, again, if you're the Timberwolves, I don't think you can be super frustrated because you can't control Dante DiVincenzo tearing his Achilles. You can't control Anthony Edwards being at whatever percent he's at, not 100% certainly, with those injuries. And I think, again, kind of goes back to my open, right? We're all kind of sitting here feeling like this thing is probably a wrap. But every single time we've thought something about the Timberwolves, they have zagged and they've proven us wrong. Whether that's been a good thing or a bad thing. And so I think the Timberwolves have a pretty fun opportunity to go ahead and play on your home floor. And if you win, then sometimes variance can step in, and game 7, you never know what can happen. So should be a fun one tomorrow night at Target Center. But yeah, I think for the Spurs, it's just their offensive ceiling is so much higher than what Denver could do, and they're so much better coached. And especially on the defensive end of the floor with Wembanyama, it's a pretty high floor.
Well, it helps when you have an antidote for the other team's best player, like an all-worldly player, and the Wolves had an answer for Jokic. I'm not sure they've figured out the answer to Wemby yet, other than take an elbow to the neck. Like game one, you can make the argument that maybe the Wolves contained him. Maybe Wemby just had a really bad game. But Parker, how would you evaluate Gobert's series in particular as the primary defender, having to go up against another Frenchman? He's very emotionally invested in this series.
Yeah.
But he's also paid a great tax, having to work so hard for 6 games against Jokic and now 6 more games against Wemby. I'm starting to see a little bit of fatigue set in.
Yep, I agree. I think we're seeing fatigue across the board set in for this Wolves team, and I think Rudy's a guy that's been at the headline of it for me when I look at what he did all year long, and then especially in that series against Denver. He was fantastic, right? He was so good in isolation defense. He was so good finding ways to just defend without fouling, not necessarily needing double teams. If there's perimeter switches, he was comfortable with switching those and staying in front of defenders. Like, this is a guy in Rudy Gobert who's comfortable with a lot of things on the defensive side of the ball. And we just don't see him comfortable right now when he's guarding Victor Wembanyama. So I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what it looks like moving forward. But I think if you're Rudy Gobert, you have to take this a little bit more personally. And you're saying, I can't let this guy get north and south on me. I have to be able to cut him off. And then in the pick and roll, it's a team effort, right? It's not an individual effort when it pick and roll and the pick and pop defense. We need to be more physical with him on the roll. There needs to be a tagger. If it's the pick and pop, Rudy needs to play in that center field, and there needs to be a stunt guy. So I think it's a team effort, Sam, and less of an individual thing. But I think if you're Rudy Gobert, you're looking at it as like, I can't have the game I had last game. I can't only have 4 points and not produce in the rebounding column the way it needs to be. The Wolves need to win the rebounding battle. If they don't win the rebounding battle, they won't win this game. It's plain and simple. And I talked about it throughout this podcast. When Rudy Gobert is great, it's when he has 12 to 15 rebounds. And if he does that, it puts the Wolves in a position to win the basketball game. So I think if you're Rudy Gobert, you got to take the challenge on in game 6, and you got to say, I'm not letting this guy outplay me, because he's a little bro. I'm the big French bro, and I'm going to show him that's what this is in game 6. And hey, like Jack mentioned, if that happens and you win, game 7's the best 2 words in sports, and anything can happen in game 7. So I think there's just a lot of pressure on this Wolves team. But also, if you're Rudy Gobert, you've been doing this for long enough. Just go out there and be yourself, and let the cards fall where they may.
You had a great tweet, Parker, at ParkerFox24. I still call them tweets. You laid out the 5 keys for game 5. And then you followed up. Wolves were 0 for 5 on my 5 keys. Lost the rebounding battle 50-42. Ball screen coverage was terrible, and Wemby had 27. Lost the 3-point battle 11-9. Had 16 turnovers. Lost the bench scoring 44-23. That sums it up really nicely right there. In a 29-point loss in game 5, is a lineup change coming for game 6? We ask that and answer it next. Brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Been a lot of late nights with the NHL and NBA playoffs. Sometimes you need a boost the next day. And if you have a sweet tooth like I do, it's challenging to find the perfect treat without all the sugar. That's why Fruity Rainbow 5-Hour Energy Shot brings that nostalgic flavor back in a whole new way. It treats your taste buds to an explosion of fruity flavor with a tasty caffeine kick. Quick, easy way to satisfy that sweet craving while keeping things simple and on the go. A zero sugar treat that's sweet tooth approved. Very convenient. Take it on the go, take it on the golf course, take it in the car on the way to run errands. Get candy flavored chaos with Fruity Rainbow 5-Hour Energy Shots, available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. Always got to remind you to check out Ben Beacon, Locked On Wolves, daily 30-minute dose of Wolves basketball, plus the Wolves postcast after every game. It's Jack Borman, it's Luke Inman, it's fire. Make sure you're tuned in tomorrow night, regardless of the outcome. Hopefully not a season ender. In 2022, Chris Finch made the controversial move to remove D'Angelo Russell. Was it from the starting lineup or the closing lineup, Jack? I can't remember which one, but Jordan
closing lineup. McLaughlin closed for him.
Yeah. McLaughlin closed, didn't work out, but it seemed like the right move at the time. Finch showed that he was willing to shake things up in a moment of desperation. That was a key game 6 at home. Is a lineup change in the cards, Jack, for tomorrow with the way the starts have gone? I alluded to it with Parker. The first 6 minutes of the starting group has been so bad, so lethargic, so lifeless, especially on the offensive end. Do you make the Rudy for Nas move that some are forecasting, or is that too dramatic?
I think that some people, I don't think it's too dramatic necessarily, because you've been matching minutes with, Rudy's been out there whenever Kornet's been out there. So I understand it. But I mean, look, Rudy Gobert has still been a really great rim protector and done a great job making it tough, even when, San Antonio's other guys are going to the rim, whether it's Fox or Castle or Vassell, things like that. And Rudy's done an excellent job, contesting a lot of those pull-up mid-range jump shots that, that the Spurs like to get into. I'd get Julius Randle out of the starting lineup, honestly. Like, I think you've talked a lot, like everybody talks a lot about how, Finch doesn't really ever go after him publicly because he doesn't want to lose Randle mentally. Is Randle really going to be that much worse than what he's been if you lose him mentally? I mean, for crying out loud, I mean, this guy plays it looks like 50% effort defensively more than half the time, hasn't given you anything on the offensive end of the floor other than rebounding some of his own misses inside and then, drawing a foul on a Wemby. All the good things that he does offensively that we've come to see and learn about him over the past couple of seasons, he does so sparingly in this series that it's just not worth having him on the floor unless you just want to be super physical with Wembanyama. So I'd start Naz Reid. I'd play Naz Reid 38, 40 minutes if he can stay out of foul trouble, just because of what he can give you as a spacer. And he's been the Wolves' best rebounder in this series. And then honestly, I would try to bring in Randall with TJ Shannon and try to have those two guys just play with better pace right away in that kind of second unit. But Chris Finch is going to do that. I think if anything, Rudy Gobert would be the guy that would have the humility to understand what Finch is trying to do. So I think if they do see a lineup change, it would be Nazin for Gobert. But at this point, I just think that it feels almost like it'd be too little too late in that regard. And it just seems like something that Chris Finch would not do. But then again, Steven finds a way to prove us wrong time and time again.
Well, the chat is relitigating the Randall Cat trade as we speak. Parker, you said you don't anticipate a lineup change. Elaborate on that. Why do you think that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Jack hit on it a little bit, but there's the mental part of losing Julius Randle. And I mean, You would hope he would be enough of a professional, because he's been in the league long enough. He's played for a great franchise like the Los Angeles Lakers, and he was with Chris Finch in New Orleans. So you would hope that he has the trust from his coach, that there's the conversation that I've had with coaches before as well. Hey, we're going to take you off the bench because we think you can bring X, Y, and Z off the bench versus in the starting lineup. And if you're a mature professional, you're going to say, you got it, coach. I'm going to do what's best for this team. But it's a risky decision, and I think it's something that I just don't think I see Chris Finch doing. I think Chris Finch still has faith in what Julius Randle can bring. And there's a reason why he hasn't commented on Julius the way he probably needs to comment on Julius. Maybe we'll see that after the season, but I don't know if it's a fragile ego. I don't know what it is when it comes to Julius Randle, but this version of him is not a championship team version, right? We're paying him $33 million next year, and he's playing the way he's playing right now. Like it's not that's like fraud. We're not that's not good. We can't do that. It doesn't work for a championship caliber team. It doesn't work for a guy like Anthony Edwards, who deserves to have a running mate who's a really good basketball player. So I just don't see it. I would love to see it. I would love to see Naz Reid's numbers up. I love that Jack mentioned that. I'd love to see Naz Reid play 36 to 40 minutes tomorrow night. He was at 31 minutes in game 5. I'd love to see that number up a little bit just because of what he gives you from a stretching the floor capacity. But also with Naz, like if Naz isn't locked in on the defensive end, he becomes unplayable as well. And it's something where Naz is very capable on the defensive end, but when he's not in it mentally, like Julius has been over the past couple of games, it's hard to play those type of guys. So I don't know. I still have faith that Julius is a mature professional and he's going to come out in Game 6 and play the way he needs to play. But at the end of the day, if you don't see that version early in the game, you have to make adjustments on the fly, and that's why you have a coaching staff behind you. That's why you have a line of communication with player development guys pre-game. Like, where's this guy's mindset at? Even sports psychology, all this stuff that these guys have, all these tools that they have going into a playoff series. Like, you got to trust the whole team effort. And if somebody's not there, if they're not impacting winning, you got to go to the next guy. So I'd also like to see a little bit more Mike Conley minutes. Now, I don't think that's a starting lineup type of thing. And I know he's going to struggle on the defensive end, guarding guys like Harper and Fox, especially with their size and strength and speed. But I just think he brings you something offensively where we've been really lacking just in terms of offensive setup, coming off of a screen hard, making the right pass, shooting a floater when a floater is needed, kicking it to the corner when, a corner kick is needed. So I don't know. I don't think there's a lineup change starting wise, but I also think that mixture of minutes and playing with different guys is something that like it does have an impact. Like I know some guys I love playing with versus other guys, and you just have that flow. So if we can find that early in the game, that's great. Then you just got to stick with it for 48 minutes.
The chat's on fire right now, and Jack, I saw you chimed in as well. Randall is low hanging fruit right now, and probably will be for his duration in Minnesota. It's very easy to look at what the Knicks are doing in much easier Eastern Conference and be upset by that. But we've also got to remember that this was not a player for player trade. This was 2 assets for 1. This was a key draft pick, and this was financial flexibility to build for the future. Jack, you want to weigh in more on some of the ramifications? Because I'm going to talk about it in a minute. Dante DiVincenzo was your best player in these playoffs until he got hurt. Dante DiVincenzo is a massive piece of that deal. So I'm not saying that there's a flat out winner or loser at this point, but I think it is a little lazy to flat out say that, we lost the trade. We lost the trade. I think it's a debate. I don't think it's that black and white. Jack, do you want to?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of revisionist history going on. Like Julius Randle, yeah, he's been terrible in this postseason, but he dominated LeBron James and he dominated Draymond Green in back-to-back playoff series last year. They went back to the Western Conference Finals. Not only did they get Dante DiVincenzo, who's on one of the best contracts in the league, they got Johan Berenger, who's their center of the future, who everybody in the organization, Anthony Edwards included, is incredibly excited about. And with Karl Anthony Towns, Karl Anthony Towns making $57 million this year. That's almost twice as much as what Julius Randle's making. You basically allowed yourself this year to be able to have Ayo Dosunmu, Dante DiVincenzo, and Randle, and also having Berenger for the future. is pretty important, and not to mention that you avoid being in the second apron, right? And you wouldn't have had the levers to be able to bring a guy like Mike Conley back if you're if you're in the second apron. You wouldn't have been able to make the Ayo Dosunmu trade that they made if you're over the second apron. And if you're continually over the second apron, your first round picks way out in the future are going to get frozen, and they already have limited flexibility on the trade front because of the Rudy Gobert trade that they made. So I think for the Wolves, yeah, it's unfortunate to lose a player of Karl Anthony Towns' caliber, especially since you could make a great argument that he's been the most important player for the Knicks, turning around that Hawks series and then dominating the Sixers, especially as a playmaker. But at the same time, the Wolves just would not have had the flexibility to be able to build a really good team around, and well, I shouldn't say really good team. I should say to get better around Anthony Edwards when you're in the second apron. You basically have to hope and pray that you're hitting on draft picks in the late 20s, second round picks, minimum guys, things of that nature, because you're just not going to be able to get those mid-level type of players in the $8 to $15 million range when you're over the second apron. So I think, again, you'd have pretty much no bench which the Knicks have right now, essentially. I mean, they've got Deuce McBride and Mitchell Robinson, but that's like about it. And you'd really only have, 7 dudes to be able to, play with. And I think that, again, you like the Knicks fortunately have been healthy for this entire playoff run, but it's like if you have a situation where you have, a Dante DiVincenzo trade or injury, you're just screwed. And so I think the Wolves are in a good position moving forward, in the sense that they've got flexibility to be able to build around Ant. They will be able to move Julius Randle's contract this offseason and be able to go in different directions. I'm just telling you right now, Karl Anthony Towns coming off of a torn meniscus, the fact that they were able to move him at that cap number is pretty remarkable. And they're fortunate that the Knicks really openly coveted Karl Anthony Towns behind closed doors. And it's just tough to it's just tough to talk about the trade without also understanding the financial and team building ramifications of being over the second apron for years and years and years going forward. Now, could you say that there's, you should have traded Randle instead of Cat? I mean, or not Randle instead of Cat, Gobert instead of Cat. That's a different conversation, but it's kind of moving the goalposts a little bit. I just think that, again, just really difficult to call it anything other than a win-win in my book, in the sense that the Wolves went back to the Western Conference Finals last year. They got, a really important culture guy in Dante DiVincenzo, and a blue chip young prospect in Baron J. Yeah, it's unfortunate that Dante got hurt, but I don't think it's necessarily fair to talk about an injury as the reason why you lose the trade when a guy plays all 82 in the regular season.
Yeah. The second apron, which is only a couple of years old, has made cap management a huge puzzle. It was a puzzle that didn't exist when Ant first came onto the scene, and it looked like you were going to build around Ant and Cat for a long, long time. This is going back to their early playoff appearances. It's a different ballgame. And I think Tim Connolly tried to do right by new ownership and long-term health, because we've seen, Parker, what depth looks like in the playoffs. Depth is huge. I know that the rotations get tightened a little bit, but to have depth like San Antonio, to have depth like OKC, and then by contrast, to not have depth like the Lakers last year or the Warriors last year or the Nuggets this year, those teams kind of get steamrolled in the postseason. And I think that depth, now the Wolves have options. There's levers to pull. They've got good mid-level contracts. I think this roster is still in good shape. I think that Dante's injury complicates it. But if Ayo stays in the mix next year, that Randle contract is movable. It's $33 million for the next 2 years. You got a player option in there. In today's NBA, that's a good contract. So I'm not trying to carry water for Julius Randle and Tim Connolly. Randle's been awful, horrible. But the trade, the roster construction is a different piece of this story.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, and obviously Jack broke all that down. But the fact of the matter is you had to do something, right? And a lot of people don't understand what that something was. This was that something, and you would have hoped that you got a version of Julius that was better. You didn't, right? It just didn't happen, and that happens sometimes in the NBA. But you got a piece in Dante DiVincenzo when you were losing a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker that is a very similar type of player, where he's a gamer, like he's going to show up, he's going to play well and now Naw deserved every bit of that $15 million that he got from Atlanta. But he's a guy that if he's a $7 million player, then he's on your roster again. But he's not. He's a better version of that. So I think you got to look at the roster for what it is and where we're at across the future, because you guys were also sitting here talking about this in the Western semifinals, right? Like there's a team in Oklahoma City who is going to dominate whoever they see. Now I think it's going to be a really good series if it is San Antonio versus OKC, but we're not to a place as the Timberwolves sit where we can go into a series with Oklahoma City and compete with their depth. Holy Hannah, look at what they have depth wise, right? Like they not only have depth, but they have future picks in the top. What's their draft pick, Jack? Are they a top 15 pick next year?
Like 11. And the one other note that I'll make, the Knicks are in the East, the Wolves are in the West. And the Wolves have had to do this without being god awful for like 4 years in a row to be able to be in a position where you can get Wemby and Dylan Harper and Stephon Castle, or for the Thunder to be able to get Chet and Jalen Williams and some of these other guys.
Yeah. So I don't know. And I come from a place where I really love what Tim Conley has done. So it's hard for me to even say anything about that. But I think there's some really good future on this team. And I know people don't want to hear about that right now as we're in the Western Conference semifinals. And you don't want to hear about Johan Berenjay when he's not going to play a minute. But there's guys like Johan that are, you have a really bright future within this organization. So it's hard. Being a GM is hard. You got to set up for the future and the present. So I know we want to focus on Game 6 moving forward here for the rest of this pod, but I think there's some things that Wolves fans should be happy about and excited about when it comes to the future of this team.
Well, I'm humbled. I'm humbled because it's our fault that Ant is going to leave. It's on us. We have to wear this. This is going to go on our tombstone.
Blame the media. Blame the media.
We'll talk about Ant Edwards' net rating next. Sounds fun. We're brought to you by Wayfair. Your outdoor space should feel like you. It's one of those spots you keep meaning to fix up. Never got around to it. We've got like the makings of a privacy fence out on our back deck that we're trying to put up. It's a lot of work though. Keep putting that off. That's where Wayfair comes in though. They can help you find pieces that match the vibe you want, and they have a great inventory. Thousands of pieces. They're all reviewed by consumers, so you can have confidence when you buy. You can filter out your searches for seating, decor, lighting, outdoor rugs. You can fit the right budget, and you can get exactly what you need for your space. So get prepped for patio season for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Wolves Squad Show rolls on. We'll be back, win or lose, on Tuesday, either previewing the Western Conference Finals or wrapping the Wolves season, putting a bow on that. Great chart, courtesy of Punch Drunk Wolves, with the playoff net ratings. So I know that just reading off numbers can be a little bit boring, but try to stick with me. So at the very top of the list, in 4 games played, Dante DiVincenzo, a 22.8 net rating for the Wolves. Next among rotation players, Terrence Shannon, 2.7. So Dante, head and shoulder, 20 points better than the next closest guy. Mike Conley then goes into the negative, 0.6. So you only got 2 guys with a positive net rating in the playoffs. All the way down, bottom of the list, Anthony Edwards, with a -8 net rating. This was 2 years ago when they rolled through Phoenix and then Denver. Ant was defensively at another level. And I think that is what is lacking, Parker, right now, is that Ant just can't defend. The energy that he does have is being expended on the offensive end, trying to escape blitzes and, get around screens. They're hiding him on defense. The defensive impact is just simply not what we saw in 23-24.
Yeah, and maybe it is the injury, right? And I think that's the easiest thing to do, right? Is blame it on the knees. And I'm sure you can. I'm sure, I've talked about it a million times. I'm sure he's struggling more than we even know, more than the media is aware of, right? I'm sure between the lines that Anthony Edwards is really in pain. But the level defensively that he's playing at is not championship level. And you hit the nail on the head, Sam. How good was he in the past couple playoffs defensively? Like we saw a version of Anthony Edwards where like, oh my goodness, this is an MVP. This guy can go defend for 35 to 40 minutes, and then he can go give you 35 points on the offensive end. Like, those are the type of guys that are generational type of players. And I still think he has that in him, right? I still think he is that player. But when he doesn't defend the way he needs to defend, and then Jaden's in foul trouble, and then Julius is being Julius, and Nas is not even in a stance, like that becomes a really bad defensive team. And it's something that you have to look at, and it has to concern you, because if you want to move forward throughout a series, if you want to win game sixes and go on the road in game, you know how hard it is to win on the road in game seven. You know how good you have to be defensively. We always talked about it as a team. Anytime we went on the road in the Big Ten, we have to be at least 8 points better than them, because there's going to be calls that don't go our way. There's going to be things that, crowd wise that doesn't go the way you want it to. Maybe you don't know the rims the way you know the rims at home. Maybe the lighting's like little things like that probably don't add up to much. But also they over time, they do add up to something. So you got to be better. And where does that start? It starts on the defensive end. And it's little things like the transition defense. How horrible has our transition defense been this whole postseason, right? Frankly, all year. It's not a focus. It's not a topic of discussion. So then you're not going to be good at it. It takes somebody like Anthony Edwards to step up and to shut it down, right? Like, if I don't make this shot, I'm going to be the halfback. Somebody else is going to be the fullback. We're going to communicate, and we're going to stop them in transition. And then once we stop them in transition, we're going to be so good on the ball. We're going to hand check them a little bit. We're going to get over the ball screens we need to get over. We're going to hedge when we need to hedge. We're going to be in our coverage. Like, it's the little things, and it's very difficult. And it's something that it takes a lot of energy. But if you're willing to do it, then you set yourself up for championships. And that's why I love watching Oklahoma City. Goodness gracious, do all those guys they compete, they defend, they're all bought in. They're all standing up at the end of the bench because they're fired up for their teammates. They don't care about who gets the glory. They want to win championships. And I think that's something that this Wolves team needs to learn from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not as much swagger. It's not just Ant Jack. It's the whole roster. Not as much swagger in this series as we saw against Denver.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of that has to do with just being able to string together stops for a long period of time and being able to turn it into offense the other way. And the Wolves just haven't been able to do that in a super meaningful way. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that San Antonio's done a really good job of getting back. Part of it has to do with the fact that the Wolves haven't prioritized trying to get out and run in transition enough, especially against a team that can be pretty devastating defensively when they're able to get set up in the half court. And so I think that that's part of it. And then I also think too that not only did they do an excellent job of making it difficult for Jokic, but like Jaden McDaniels just completely took their second best player out of the game.
Yeah.
And I think when you have two guys dominating defensively in such a way, I think that's what the home crowd at Target Center and this fan base as a whole really appreciates. Like, I think this fan base will live with missed shots and they will live with turnovers, but they will not live with guys not playing hard and with guys just not doing the dirty work of diving on the ground for 50-50 balls. I think that's one of the areas where Julius Randle, and there've probably been 10 or 12 times where he could dive on the ground and get a 50-50 ball, but just doesn't do it. And I think that type of thing just really gets guys on the wrong foot with the fan base. And that I think that's where you do really miss a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker was really willing to do a lot of those things. And I think it's been fun to see TJ Shannon kind of step into doing a lot of those things and has created a lot of that kind of positive energy and that swagger that you're talking about. But I also just think it's tough that the Wolves certainly just feel like their margin for error is so thin. And when you feel like you have such a thin margin for error, if Randall's not playing well offensively, if Rudy's not playing well offensively, like having 2 of the 7 guys that you're rolling out there with giving you very little on offense is just a huge issue against a defense that's as strong as San Antonio. So I think for the Wolves, everything has to start with stops and being able to run and get some easy baskets. And that's how you can kind of string those 6-8-0 runs that really gets the crowd going. And then, being able to save Ant a little bit, I think, for some of the more important moments of the game, right? Like right away at the start of the game, right away out of the halftime locker room, and then to start the fourth quarter. And I think when the Wolves have been successful in this series, Ant has really showed up in those parts of the game, dating back to the Denver series as well. So it'll be interesting to see how this team responds, but I do think that they're capable of kind of creating those moments that you're talking about, Sam, and you certainly need to create a lot of them at home if they want to force a game 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, other side of that net rating chart that I read off, Dante DiVincenzo, head and shoulders the leader, Parker. How do you think this series looks different if he's healthy, if at all?
Oh, it looks way different, and I know that's an individual, right? We've talked enough about how this is a team effort, but goodness gracious, I was so impressed with Dante this year, and it's something that I just didn't see on TV as much as I saw when I was in person. Just his ability to teeter on that line of fouling, but also being aggressive on ball defense, and especially off ball defense, like. Dante's a competitor. Dante reminds me a lot of, even just the kind of the the vibe that I get from Victor Wembanyama, where like he's willing to go dive on a loose ball. He's willing to get dunked on if it means that he walled up defensively. He's willing to get his hand in a passing lane. Now they're completely different players, but like I just see that same kind of energy in Dante DiVincenzo, and I think he anchors what the Wolves want to do. Obviously Jaden McDaniels is your 1A defensively, but Dante's often your 1B, especially when Ant isn't, the defender that you would hope he would be. So I think we're really missing Dante. Obviously, the proof is in the pudding with those stats that you brought up, Sam. But just his ability to make shots when we haven't been making shots, and then defend the 3 when we haven't been great against defending the 3. So I think he's a guy you're really missing, and not to mention the fact that he's a winner. Like the dude is a winner. He won in college. He's continued to win in the pros, and Dante is a guy who he's going to win championships throughout his career. I just have a feeling he is, because he's going to put himself in position to play on good teams and find rotational minutes because he defends, because he makes threes. Like you look at the NBA, right? And it's something that when I was going through the process of deciding whether I wanted to transfer or whether I wanted to try to go, declare for the draft and get a combine invite, so many of these agents would tell me, you're not going to be, a 1 or a 2 piece on a team, but what is 1 or 2 things that you can bring to an NBA roster? And for me, that was obviously my athleticism and then just my energy. And I think playing hard is a skill. I think it's an underrated skill, and Dante DiVincenzo brings that. And it's something that I would always see when I was in person at Wolves games, like the level that he brings defensively. He's always in a passing lane. He always is in the right spots defensively. And I think that's something when you take one of those people away, like you're able to hide other people when he's doing what he does defensively. And you take that piece away, it exposes a lot of things, especially to this Wolves defense.
Do the Wolves have a shot if they force a game 7? We'll try to be optimistic when we come back. We are brought to you today by Kalshi. The playoffs are here. It's the most electric time in basketball, and at Kalshi you can trade every single playoff game, every series, the conference finals, and the championship round. Right now, the public is 9% on the Timberwolves to win the series. San Antonio, 91%. So what does that mean? If you think the Wolves win the next 2 games, you'll get paid like 10-1 odds, basically. Bet 10, get 100, something like that. 9% on the Wolves. They've been here before. Can they do it again? That's all at Kalshi, where there are so many options for you to get in a live market. There's no house. The probability changes. You can buy in, buy out, or sell out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade 10. Kalshi, Kalshi, trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. We're also brought to you by Rocket Money Today. Have you ever opened up your bank account and wondered, where did the money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. Rocket Money helps you take control of your finances all in one place. Just a few taps, you can get in on the app. You can see what categories you've spent money in. You can set budgets, get alerts, stay on top of upcoming bills, get a very clear picture of your finances, and that helps you save. So monitor your spending, lower bills, grow your savings with Rocket Money. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Final segment, Wolves Squad Show. Jack, we've been hopeless before. Game 5 a couple of years ago, Jokic scores 40. Wolves had lost 3 games in a row at that point. They go and they win Game 6 by 45. And then the comeback in Game 7, where anything can happen. I'm not saying the Wolves can win by 45, but I think they're capable of winning at Target Center. Different vibe, different team. This is all about forcing an unpredictable Game 7, where maybe the weight of the moment weighs more on San Antonio than it does Minnesota. So if the Wolves can get past this hurdle, and it's a big hurdle, the home games have been tough, even against San Antonio. What chances do you give them to go back to San Antonio and try and shock the world in a Game 7?
What chance do I give them in Game 6 to force a Game 7?
No. If they get to Game 7, because we don't have a show before then, so we're talking Game 7 now.
Okay.
What chances would you give them?
Yeah, I would give them maybe a 15% chance. I think that, look, Anthony Edwards is still one of the 7, whatever Bill Simmons number you want to throw out there, best player in the NBA. And even though he's certainly compromised, I mean, Anthony Edwards is still capable of getting up and making 7 or 8 threes in a game. I don't think we've seen Jaden McDaniels' best offensive game. I don't think we've seen, Ayo Dosunmu probably play his best game. TJ Shannon's still been pretty limited as a scorer. And I think when you get to a one game, anything can happen, right? And I think that, I talked about this in the, leading up to Game 5 and Game 6 of the last series, right? Is when you only need to win one game, it could be anybody's day. And I think the Wolves have plenty of offensive talent to be able to, just make a bunch of shots and kind of be the beneficiary of shooting variance, right? And I think, Jaden McDaniels could really be that guy that could swing it in a Game 7 in the sense of, he started to see the 3-ball go through the basket in a few of these games. We've already seen that he obviously can get into the mid-range, elevate over defenders that are going to be smaller than him, stop before Wemby. He's also been a guy that's, I think, been at the heart of the Wolves generating 3-point shots when they've been at their best doing that in this series. They certainly need to be better. And so I think the Wolves have put together stretches where they've been really good, and they've been to the free throw line at least 20 times in every single game in this series. And so they can get a Fox or a Castle, maybe even a Wemby into foul trouble at different points. So yeah, I certainly think that the deck is stacked against them, considering how they've played in San Antonio their last two games. But I think it would be disrespectful, especially if they found a way to win Game 6, to just say, oh, they've got no chance. I think the San Antonio group is young, but they're really confident and they play really connected basketball. That's fun to watch when they're not flopping. And I certainly think that they've earned being heavy favorites in a potential Game 7 at home, but you never know how that pressure might manifest itself. But yeah, certainly an uphill climb for the Timberwolves to not only win Game 6, but then also go on the road and win a Game 7 on short rest.
Yeah, I mean, and I was very negative going into Game 7 against the Nuggets a couple of years ago, and then they fell behind by 20. Like, it all played out how I expected it to play out until the miraculous happened. I think it would. We have been waiting for the 3-point variance to show up, Parker, and maybe it happens in Game 6. Maybe it never happens. Just been waiting for this team to hit some shots. Jaden McDaniels started hitting some threes in Game 5. Maybe that's something to build on. need a lot more from Ant. You need to have 3 players have their best games of the series to pull this off.
Yeah, you do. And I think it's something where I look at, I just pulled up the Spurs record because I was just kind of curious what they were doing at home, what they were doing on away. And there is so many green W's. There's only 4 red L's from what's that? The 31st of January on in the regular season, which is just it's incredible what they've been able to do as they closed out this season, and then they brought that into the postseason. And I think they dropped one to Portland that they probably shouldn't have dropped, but nonetheless, and even the first one against the Wolves, like how bad were the Spurs in that game. So I don't give us a lot of hope. I love Jack's 15 number. I'm just going to go north of it at 17, just to be that guy. But
Little Price is Right action.
yeah, exactly. But nonetheless, I think it's very bleak. There's comments in here saying that Ant needs to score 50. I mean, yeah, granted, would that help for sure? But that's not the recipe, right? Like even when Ayo Dosunmu had that 43-point game, yeah, it helps us win a game, but that's not the recipe. That's not what you want if you're a coaching staff. Like that means that somebody else didn't play the way they needed to play offensively. So I think there's a lot of factors. I do have a lot of hope going into game 6, and I think we're going to learn right from the jump, Sam. We're going to see what type of Wolves team comes out to play, and if it's the version of the Wolves team that all 3 of us know is capable of beating the Spurs at home, then great. Then we go to play game 7, and we mentioned it. That ball tips off in game 7, and it's all your cards are on the deck. Like it's all hands on deck, and you're trying to find a way to win a basketball game. Now, that takes a level of commitment that I just haven't seen from this Wolves team yet. We talk about diving on the floor for loose balls, being in spots defensively, being willing to go check somebody out and box out and rebound. So I haven't seen it, but I have just this false hope, I guess you could say, and I think that's probably the Minnesota sports fan in me. And I felt it last night as a Wild loss in overtime, and I feel it every single year as our core 4 sports teams do not win championships. But I still have faith in this Wolves team, and I think Chris Finch is going to prepare them the right way for Friday night, tomorrow night, that is, and hopefully they come out from the jump willing to play. And it's going to show me, forget about the score after the first quarter, Sam. I want to see the effort there, and if the effort's there and it can maintain for the next 7 quarters, I still think they have a chance.
4.5-point underdogs going into game 6. Silver linings. Ant got an extra day of rest. Ayo got an extra day of rest. Randall can't play worse. There are some law of averages that could swing back in the Wolves' favor. And I will say this: it doesn't matter if you win by 1 or 50. If you eke out game 6 and the scoring margin in this series, it might be Spurs plus 60, but you might be tied at 3-3. If you went into the series saying you will get a game 7, you will get a game 7. I think I'm over the moon with that. Like I'm not sure I expected the Wolves to win a game on the road like they did in game 1. I think because of the matchup issues that were presented by Wemby, I did not expect the Wolves to get this far in the series. Game 7 happens. I'm all about it. And I would hope that the unpredictability of game 7 could swing things back in the Wolves' favor. That's what you're banking on. Just try to extend this, win at all costs, and play with some urgency in an elimination game. Squad show's back on Tuesday, recapping all that has occurred and maybe previewing the offseason. We'll see. Thanks a lot to Parker. Thanks a lot to Jack here. Jack on the postcast after the game tomorrow night with Luke Inman. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Thanks to all who commented and watched live and found us after the fact on demand. Locked on Wolves podcast feed on the #1 sports podcast network.